True. I know it by experience. If you have the remotest, tiniest sore on your body, and it's exposed, and you lay down to do exercises on your floor, your dog will come over and lick your sores. Noel does that to me every day, whether I have a sore or not. When I get down in the morning, because I have this back thing, so I do my exercises. My dog is Noel, by the way. I lay down, and sure enough, wherever she is, she comes over and starts the face, and starts the arms, and starts the hands. I gotta go lay down, one more kiss, and then she goes away. Okay. So it's true, the dogs did list and lick the sores of the prophetic person we're talking about, Lazarus. This is a parable. So historically, interesting, the name Lazarus is beautiful. God has healed. So this man in torment outside the gates of this wealthy man's place. Wealthy man, I see on your windows you have a beautiful section of purple going to the bottom of that stained glass window, especially on that side. He was dressed in purple, we're told. In the New Testament, in one of the Acts of the Apostles, there is a woman whose name is Lydia, who was the merchant in purple. She was a merchant of purple. She made her money in purple. Purple was a symbol of wealth. The purple was processed through the shells of the inside of the shells. They were crushed, and they were mixed with other chemicals. And it was very expensive to have purple clothing. Most people would have a beige kind of white clothing. The wealthy would have purple clothing, and the more purple, the more wealthy they were. So we hear Jesus giving this wonderful parable of this very wealthy man covered in purple and this poor man covered in sores. Very interesting, both are covered. Now he's speaking to the Pharisees. Now you got to know, this is Luke's gospel. You'll hear throughout the season of Luke's gospel, Luke's concern for the poor, always. Luke's concern for the role of women, always. And Luke's great devotion to prayer. Read any of the four Gospels, but if you read Luke's Gospel, those are the key highlights. His concern for the poor, his concern for prayer, his concern for the role of women in the Gospel, in the early church. So Jesus is speaking to those who know it all. He's speaking to the Pharisees who are criticizing him left and right. Don't forget, last few weeks you heard in the scriptures the other stories, the Samaritan and all the good people that Jesus talked about, taking care of the poor. And we have the reflection of this Sunday as well as last Sunday in the words and the spirit of Amos, who is that prophetic preacher who preached against the wealthy who ignored the poor. So now we have this relationship between the gospel and the scriptures of Amos. Go to Amos. Amos is preaching in the south, in the Holy Land. It was north and south, northern kingdom, southern kingdom. Northern kingdom was extremely wealthy. This is around 750 BC. Wealthy, they were so wealthy, he referred to the women as cows. That's how wealthy they were, the women. They were so fat, they were like cows grazing. And he was being very specific and very sarcastic. And he was not currying favor with the king up in the north. As a matter of fact, he emphasized in the north, he says, they lay on comfortable couches, and the couches are carved of ivory, and historians have found in archaeological searches some of these kinds of couches, furniture that the ancient people of that section of the world would lie on. And there were sections of ivory built into the ivory, just decorating, just, again, more emphasis on what they had, the wealth. And they comfortably stretched on their couches, on their couches, and they ate lambs from the flocks. I mean, you got to hear this. You got to understand, as we do when we hear the scriptures. He's not saying they had a meal. They had lamb. They had very well chosen lamb and calves selected from the crops. Well, the people in the south are hungry, are starving. And one more thing. This is very interesting. abundanza. My grandmother would say, abundanza. You have too much, you know. You have this toy and that toy. You have abundanza. And actually, he was saying the same thing. He said, you know, they don't drink wine from cups or glasses. They drink wine from bowls. And they anoint themselves the best of oils. So they were grotesque. They were gluttonous. They smelled good. And they ate a lot. But they ignored the poor. And one of the great phrases from the scriptures, woe are they. Woe. Like, you might hear this from time to time. I have this Italian thing in my blood, okay? I used this last week because Amos was in last week's readings too. Woe is like, the Italians would understand this. Like, wait until your father gets home. Your mother didn't have to say, wait till your father gets home. She said, oh. It said it all. You hid. You went and you found yourself in the depths of the basement where daddy couldn't come because when he pulled off his belt, okay. That's what Amos is saying. Whoa, when God returns, is he going to get you? And you are going to be the first to fall. And he refers to them. Therefore now, you will be the first to go into exile, and your wanton revelry will be done away with. And sure enough, the north falls, Assyria moves in, and they're devastated. And those wealthy, gluttonous, non-caring, apathetic pigs of people were taken into slavery. Now that's the context. Now Jesus knows Amos. He's reflecting the concern for the poor. And the Pharisees, those who are the establishment of the church, of the synagogue, but you know, let's update it to the 21st century. Those who are members of the establishment, they go around wearing fancy clothes, building big buildings, and doing all this wonderful stuff. For the poor, what are they doing? For the poor, what are we doing? So he gives this example. You know, you can't just build the establishment because we all are obligated, and Paul makes this very clear in the letter to Titus and Timothy. They're pastoral letters. They were written well after Paul, but they're attributed to Paul because they follow his train of thought. I charge you before God who gives life to all things and before Jesus Christ who gave testimony to keep the commandments that we have until his return. And what is the commandment that Jesus, what is the commandment that Amos, what is the commandment that Titus and Timothy and all the pastoral letters are talking about? No other than love one another as God loves you. The greatest commandment. Jesus backed into the corner. Give us the greatest. Come on. We have 672 commandments. Which is the greatest, Jesus? Love the Lord your God with your whole heart, your soul, and your body, and your neighbor as yourself, and those are the one commandment, which will fall short if you're a wealthy person who doesn't care about the poor, which will fall short if the only concern is what is the next thing I'm going to acquire. If it will fall short, and we're held by the pastoral letters under the obligation of proclaiming our faith in Jesus Christ out there, not only in here. This is the starting point. This is the launching pad. The Eucharist, our strength, the words, our knowledge, the starting point to blast into the future as we leave here. This is a very comfortable city, but you're not close to comfortable. One side, you're very comfortable in a more comfortable city. On the other side, you're in an uncomfortable city. And I know here is a parish. Eva's, often, twice a month. People are cooking, collecting for Father English Center on a regular basis, and many other charitable works that happen in this parish. One of my biggest problems in life is I'm never satisfied. I'm never satisfied. So if you think you're doing good, and I'm not your pastor, I'm just a visitor. If you think you're doing good as a parish, if you think you are giving enough to the poor, if you think your charitable actions are enough over the top, it's not enough. You got more to do. All of us, me too, all of us have more to do. Why? Because we're charged in the name of Jesus Christ to do what he told us to do, love one another as we love ourselves. So as good as we treat ourselves, I don't care if you go to the commercial stores and buy the nice colognes, or you buy the nice candles for your house, or you buy nice drapes, or you buy some nice car, good shoes, a big yacht. Good. Enjoy it. Knock your socks off with everything like that. But love another person as you love yourself. Treat the poor as you treat yourself. That's not me talking. That's Jesus Christ talking. And we're obligated to use this gathering space. When this letter to Timothy was put together, theologians think it was probably part of a ritual of ordination. So probably a bishop being ordained. And he says, it's part of the ritual, think of it as if someone, either your pastor's being installed, or a bishop's being ordained, or you, Eucharistic ministers, being commissioned. But you, person of God, pursue righteousness, devotion, faith, love, patience, gentleness. Compete for the faith. You just heard that read. I know you just heard that. And you know it really sunk in, didn't it? That means you're liars. Did it sink in? Did that word sink in? Did you hear the elector say, compete for the faith? Everyone should know, as soon as we leave here, and you go to your various, everyone should know how faithful we are, because we compete for the faith, not to be show-offs, but to say, I want to bask in the life and light of Jesus Christ, because he gave himself to us so that we could compete in the faith, so we could eventually eliminate poverty. Although Jesus did say it'll always be with us, but you know what? It's not up to us to politically correct him or not, but it is up to us to love beyond our measure, almost. Think of Mother Teresa. Think of people like that, and there are a lot of people like that in our society, our world, our diocese, throughout the world. She used to go, real quick story, Mother Teresa. She was from Yugoslavia. She went to India with a religious order, I think the Sisters of Laredo, to teach the wealthy kids of the wealthy Indians or expatriates who went there to live in Calcutta. It was called Calcutta at that point. She goes outside the walls of the school complex one day, and she sees what you heard today. She goes out and she sees laying on the street dead and dying people whose wounds were being licked by cows and animals going by and flies. She went through a conversion, and she calls it herself, it was a vocation, a calling within a vocation. She was already a nun, but this is another calling to do something more. She applies for the right channels, and we don't have to do all that stuff, and she begins the sisters, the missionary sisters of charity. Her mission was to care for the poorest of the poor. Not the poor, the poorest of the poor. She established houses for the dying. And she would care for each of those people, and her sisters who joined her would care for each of those people until they died. Didn't matter, Hindu, Christian, Jewish, didn't matter. And she would say, every person she looks at, she sees the face of Jesus. That's it. That's what we're here for. To see the face of Jesus in each other here, and to see the face of Jesus out there. And John Paul II, in his letter on the Eucharist in 2004, Mane Nobiscum Domine, just two little quotes. The Eucharist is not merely an expression of communion in the Church's life. It is also a project of solidarity with all of humanity. So if you came here today, and you expect you can spend your 45 to an hour here, and then go home, and I'll see you next week, same time, same place, with nothing in between, you're wrong. All of us are wrong. From the Pope on down to the poorest person and the youngest person in our community. Our solidarity starts here, but continues out there in the world. John Paul. We cannot delude ourselves. By our mutual love, and in particular by our concern for those in need, we will be recognized as true followers of Christ. This will be the criteria by which the authenticity of our Eucharistic celebrations is judged. Feel good here. Be energized here. All of us are receiving the body of God. What more of a gift do we want? Get out there and glorify Him and compete